Time for Talking the Block again, sponsored by ESA Trading Limited, the good folks at ESA Trading Limited and at New India Assurance. Our guest will be joining us very soon. And to what promises to be another engaging program. And today we're talking the importance of a united society, what that means from a sociological standpoint. We'll also get a criminological view on that. Some other perspectives, some takeaways that the authorities can apply to ensure that we truly develop as a nation. Of course, those of you who are just tuning in, share the live, call a friend to call a friend. My guest my first guest just stepped in. Good afternoon to Marceline Edwards. Good afternoon to you. Marlene, good afternoon to you as well. If you're tuning in while eating your lunch, you did the right thing. Good afternoon to my friends, the Dangoben family. Good afternoon to you. Rossi. And Blue Blue is already tuned in. Blue Blue, God love you. All right, in studios with me, we're gonna hit the ground running, as they say. There's criminologist, peaceologist, and sociologist, Dr. Peter St. Jean, well-known name in Dominica, patriot of the soil. How are you this afternoon, my friend?
Vijay, I'm doing very good. Thanks for having me in the studio. It's a pleasure to be here with you. First time that actually, we should take a selfie on that. Yeah. First time I'm actually in the studio with you.
After.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. I know that you've been busy. A lot of my guests are always busy, but you guys always make the time when I give that phone call, and I really, really, really appreciate that. Very genuinely so. So this afternoon, we're talking the importance of a united society. There are many things we could unpack from that, but we're going to try within the time allotted to us to see what we can divulge. The main things we can go in. So I want to begin first off by asking you off the bat, where do you think we're at in the Dominican context, as far as it relates to the social aspect of society?
Yes, well, let's begin from the beginning. If the topic is the importance of a united society, that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing we should do is to define what is a united society, right? So, and because that could be different things for different people. And it is not necessarily a matter of right or wrong, but as scientists, we usually work from definitions. So that way, whatever definition I have, there are going to be limitations to my definition. Yeah. So you can criticize me, but you have to criticize me within an understanding of what my definition is. Right?
Okay.
Right? Fair enough?
Fair take,
so
fair
it's
take.
important for us to say, okay,
Fair
when we
take.
talk about united, and so what is society?
Yeah.
And if society is united, what is united? What is society? I want to bring united and society together. What does it look like?
Yes.
Right? So, of course, society refers to interactions and relations among humans and the environment, right? And it can encompass a whole bunch of things. And united means having an awareness and organized resources towards desired ends. So now, if I am by myself and you are by yourself, and each of us are working, each one is working on his or her own goal, right? Without an awareness of another, there is not a space for the definition of unity. Right? So it is true. What we do together could help to create a common pool for the nation, or it could common pool for your families. So you have a home where there's a father, there's a mother, or there are two parents, and neither of them do not talk to each other, but the children talk to the parents. But the parents could still be working in a united way to parent the child, even if they're not talking to each other, because through the child, they're trying to give the child the best resources. So the center of focus is that child, and the parents are not talking to each other, but what they work through the child is they have a united purpose of having the child's best interest at mind. So when we talk about a united nation, a united country, a united village, a united home, we are not necessarily talking about kumbaya all the time. Because one of the very important things we have to understand in society is that almost every relationship can be amicable, but relationships will not be amicable in the same way. You understand? Let's go back to parents. You can have two parents parenting a child. An amicable relationship may be one that creates the least function to allow the child to realize her or his best interest or quality of life. But for the mother and the father to good morning, good afternoon, how are you? And that might not be possible, right? So a united front has to have what is a common interest? And in spite of differences, how do we work towards a common goal? When that goal changes. So in other words, there's no unity really without a definition of what is the unity for. So in that case of raising a child together, you and I don't have to really talk as parents, but if we are working and doing our part to raise the child, we can say we have a united family. You understand? If the purpose in that context. So I wanted to make sure that definition is set up, because sometimes people think that united just means kumbaya, we all have to agree all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Because it's very important for us to realize, in fact, even in talking about unity, sometimes it's very important to imagine, to realize and to embrace and to accept the fact that you are not going to be good and best friends with everybody. Some relationships are not meant to be amicable in certain ways, because certain people, for you to be good friends with them, they have to ride you on your back. You have to be mumu, or you have to play dumb, or you have to play blind, or you have to play dotish. And if you can play mumu, dumb, dotish, then you can be in a good relationship with them. But if you have to stand up for yourself and speak your mind and speak your truth, then it will not be something. So you have to realize, are you going to give in to that? Or you're going to cut it halfway, or you're going to sell out. So that's a long explanation, but I wanted to set that foundation, because in the context of any questions that callers have, I'll be responding to it in that context. And if they have another definition, we can talk about that. But if there's a context, a criticism or praises within that context. Make sense?
Makes sense. Let me ask, from a sociological and criminological perspective, how does social unity contribute to reducing violence and crime and community breakdown in small societies like Dominica? We've seen the recent effort from a nation point of view against violence of gun violence in recent times. You have made public statements in relation to the approach to that in recent times. Your views?
Yes, well, let's get back to the question of the importance. I don't remember the exact words that you used, but let me paraphrase it to mean the importance of a united society. Right? So again, remember, you say a united society is one that is organized for a particular goal. For particular goals, but we talk about the unity, one kind of goal at a time. Although goals may relate to each other, sometimes we dissect that. You understand? To say about parenting and childhood. Now, from the beginning, you asked me from the sociological perspective, from the beginning of sociology, the idea of solidarity, social solidarity, has been claimed to be very important. And there is a sociologist named Emil Durkheim that talks about mechanical and organic solidarity. That people, we can have solidarity, but what are you coming together from? There's organic, mechanical, and organic solidarity. There's solidarity that is because, you have mom and pop shop, and you have those of us who rely on each other. We may do some kudme, we may have to raise children, we may have various things to do. And based on a division of labor, we might want to, we are forced to survive, because those who are catching the fish and cooking the fish and selling the fish and getting the water, we have a division of labor. So we have, in order for us to survive, we have to be united, right? There's that's mechanical and organic solidarity refers to the idea that people are together for the purpose of being together. Like, we know we're together and we're united regardless of the purpose. It is not for kind of a specific purpose. But Durkheim and other sociologists have said that solidarity and unity are very, very important, because that determines a common thread. And at the University of Chicago, the theory of social disorganization, the capacity of a group to realize common values and maintain effective social control, that is one of the most central theories. The capacity of a group to realize common values and maintain effective social control. What are the common values? So now, if you like to chew with your mouth open, and I don't want you to chew with your mouth open, that's a problem right there in a little relationship. If you're a loud person and I don't want to be loud, if you want to dominate me and I don't like to be dominated, so what are the common values of the people? To clean our yards, to be respectful to each other. What are those common values? I want to find common values. Not all of the common values are equally important. So you have common values and values that are more important, right? So the capacity of a group to realize common values. How are we going to know what are common values? And maintain effective social control. Social control is the capacity of a group to regulate itself according to desired principles and values. So it is about self-regulation. You understand? So we have to have a capacity. The unity is important to figure out what rules are important to us. How do we codify and how do we follow those rules, right? And second of all, how do we regulate ourselves? Richie, if we said nothing else, if we had to end the show here, the central importance of unity is the ability to enact independent self-regulation. If each of us can regulate ourselves, we have less of a purpose of the state having to come in. So that relates to part of what you're saying now. Like, if we're talking about the Dominican society, American society, any society, well, let's say talk about the Dominican society, any kind of lawlessness or problems that we see, we will come back to say, do the people who break the law, to what extent do they abide or they embrace the rule of the law? Whether it is about violence, whether it is about drug use, whether it is about theft, whether it is embezzlement, whether it's about corruption, whatever it is, to what extent do the people believe and embrace that? And second of all, if they believe and embrace that, to what extent can they regulate themselves to live a life that is in accordance to the laws and the rules that they say they agree to? So that is it, really, in a nutshell. So there are a bunch of other things we can talk about. That it's like you don't know the law, or you don't believe in the law, or you know and believe in the law and you can't really regulate yourself. So it's really as simple as that. So we can fit that into the other things we talk about. So we'll just come back again to two things. What are the laws? To what extent that we embrace them? We know them, we embrace them, and we share them. And second of all, when we know them, to what extent can we regulate ourselves? Not so much about regulating other people, because if each person can regulate themselves, we have less of an issue. But sometimes, so there's something called internal and local social control, right? So locus of control. So the internal locus of control is something like inside of you say, boy, I'm not going to do harm. I'm not going to do violence. And I am going to regulate myself. You understand? An external locus of control means something outside of you, your church, your government, your family is going to tell you, even if you may want to do it, there's going to be something that has to respond to you to kind of force you to do what it is that you probably don't want to do. But if you have an internal locus of control that says, hey, I'm not going to do violence to people, it doesn't matter if the police exist, because you're not going to be breaking the law. But if you really want to be doing those things that are bad, the external locus of control, the police, the government, and what we call formal social control is very, very important. And we have informal social control, which is families, laws, and rules, and those types of things. You know,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that you break it down, Doc, is very interesting. What are the key social indicators to your mind which reflect a fragmented society. And how can unity be intentionally built or restored at a national level?
Yes, a fragmented society is a society that, to some extent, to various extents, has not been able to sufficiently set goals for itself and to unite people to believe in the rules, to first believe in those goals, the approach to getting those goals, reaching those goals, you understand? Missing those goals and not being able to readjust back to what it is that they said they want to do. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, a fragmented society could be one where we have not agreed on what we want to unite for, right? So it's, to some degree, if you haven't done so, you're really going to be fragmented because without any organization, and although to some degree we can say there's always some level of organization, but let's say right now we have been in double-digit homicides in Dominica for too long, right? There were times when we were not that way 30 years ago, and we want to be in double-digit homicides for the next, let's say, 5 years, right? Let's say we said that, we declare that to ourselves. And now we know that within the family, within the home, they're going to be offenders, they're going to be motivated offenders, they're going to be suitable targets, and they're going to be capable guardians. And all of us come together, police, government, the regular people say, we want to work together for peaceful Dominica to have less than 10 homicides for the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. You understand? So that gives us, and if, well, you don't want to talk to the police about it, you don't want to listen to the minister, you don't listen to the police, you don't want to behave yourself. So it's fragmented because we haven't embraced that. Some people say, well, it doesn't matter, the crime is low enough. You understand? So you set those goals, and when you're working towards them or you're not working towards them, that is when we are saying, so the very idea of fragmentation or not deals back again to setting goals. And we can say we all want to be in a safe society, a nice, clean, peaceful society, and to what extent are we collaborating to that? So some of the things that are missing as you are, what creates a fragmented society is, number one, there might not be a good enough, when I say leadership, I'm not just talking about government. Right? It could be in your home, in your family, in your community, in your village council. A lot of people looking around for somebody else to pick up the trash, somebody else to set the rules. So it's fragmented somewhere because leadership has not happened. And again, we're not talking just about national leadership even for your own self. You understand?
Yes.
And there's so leadership to the goals and leadership to organize yourself to be able to maintain the goals. So that is how the fragmentation happens. Yeah. Because what is the reverse of that is that when you form those goals and you work towards getting them, and people have the capacity to be able to receive them. And the opposite of that brings fragmentation.
Fantastic. Let me ask you, Doug, how does then a united society impact youth development, particularly in shaping identity? We know there are a lot of studies which show young people experiencing identity crisis. This is not limited only to that demographic, but it's a real thing. And so how does a united society impact youth development, particularly, again, in shaping their identity, shaping their discipline, and pretty much upgrading their sense of national pride? How do we achieve that?
That is a very good question. And so the short answer is that, again, we have to set goals and expectations, and we have to set abilities to have resources to make those goals and expectations become a reality. Young people, the mind, until you're about 21, 25, depends on how the study looks like, our brains, the prefrontal lobe, which is the executive function of the brain, it develops rapidly and slowly, and it develops differently for different people. That's why we have, in the neoclassical theory, we do not punish young people like the way we punish adults, because their minds have not yet evolved to the point where they can make rationally calculated, responsible decisions as much as others can. They need to be responsible, but while their brains are still developing, they misfire every now and then. But the things that you expose them to, these are the things that that most likely will be reflected. There's a saying that says the best investment you can make is the first dollar that you can commit. Whether you invest it in the bank or you save it. And if somebody comes 10 years later and gets even a rate that is just as yours, they have 10 years to catch up to you. So similar to a child, if you're going to show love to a child and show respect to a child and help a child to learn, read, write, think, count, and spell, learn good values, have good ethics and good manners, and you're going to teach them to do the basic things they need to do, the earliest they can start to do this is the longer the investment in them. So every child we have,
there's a time factor, though.
very right at the beginning. And parenting doesn't begin when the child is born. Neither when the one is pregnant. Parenting begins when the child is a child. You know what I mean? Because once you're small, you start to learn and see how your parents are. So it's very important as a United Society for us to learn, help our young people to learn how to read, write, think, count, and spell, how to feel, how to think, how to act, and how to react. And we all have to take some level of leadership. Like even I'm from Trafalgar, and I mean, Richie, and this afternoon I just pick up some chicken by Malcolm Stevens, and we're going to cook up because some people want to sleep in a tent on my property tonight. So I have about 15, somewhere between 10, 15 or 20 young people without an invitation or an announcement.
I know your community, man. They know you well.
They come in my yard, they play cricket, they play football. And when that's
good.
And when the children are in problems with their parents, they come to me. And I just talk to them. So now that is what you're talking about. We are united, and the parents are happy that the kids are around me because they know if something good is happening. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. And sometimes the informal kind of reaction, relations are even stronger than more the formal ones. Formal ones are important, but when young people can just approach you and ask for help, talk to you about things that are bothering them, and you can show them love and support and responsibility. These are good things.
Excellent. In the face of political and economic division, based on your expertise, how can leaders and institutions foster inclusive dialogue and collective purpose across social groups? You mentioned
so you try to put me in trouble, man. Again. Every time I come to 95, I'm going to be my post.
You mentioned the engagement between the difference between formal social responsibility and informal. You just made a statement that informal can sometimes prove to be even more effective. But in terms of the dynamics of this question, in the face of political and economic division, we're asking now from a formal perspective, how can leaders and institutions as well foster that kind of inclusive dialogue and collective purpose? How should they begin approaching each other?
That's a good question. Let me start with the bad news first. One of the worst things you can have among leaders, political leaders, and other leaders, I'm a leader as a dean. I head a college in the College of Arts and Sciences, is to have big men and big women with fragile egos. If people in big positions have egos that are too fragile, there's a trickle-down effect that forces other people to not want to be open enough to them to tell them the truth where they can grow.
Say that again.
That big men in big position, big women in big position, or people in big position, the biggest enemy to their position is a fragile ego. That means to say that they get shamed very quickly, that they want you to speak to them in ways that almost always compliment them. And even after you give them 100 compliments and you give them a half compliment, that half compliment, they turn it to a quarter, to a 75% criticism, and they ride it. And they want to bury you. It's like for them to lead you well, you have to be mumu, you have to be dotish, and you have to pull down your underwear. All right? Now that may sound like I mean hopefully I don't play that clip. You guys have a habit of playing clips over and over and over again. Professor, don't do me that, okay? But seriously, they want to touch you in places that you're not supposed to be touched, or who supposed to touch you. They don't even want to touch you there. They want to get your children at the age before they are ripe. They want to be able to ride you like a bike. And when you speak up, they want to tie your tongue because their egos are too fragile. So one of the things that I teach in leadership, I'm teaching a class in methods and social research. And when I teach young people about leadership, one of the first things we have to do in the military, they call it hazing. When you go to fraternity, they call it hazing. That's why they haze people, even in nursing and in doctors, they haze you. Even in media studies, they put powder on your face. That hazing is to scrape away your ego and to allow you not to take yourself too seriously. And I have to admit that I have to learn some of that myself, because to get to a PhD level, you have to beat the smartest people in the room, which are advisors. So when you have a PhD, every person with a PhD, most people with PhDs, I would say everybody comes out, you have to have a healthy dose of arrogance in order for you to come to a level to say that you are smarter and better at that topic than your advisors. And some people do not make it to the PhD because they cannot really even argue enough against the advisors. Now, after you come to that level where you are outsmart those who are smarter than you, right? Or on this particular topic or topic, not everything. You have to now work with your own life to humble yourself to be able to deal with regular people. And I have to admit that I am still working on some of that because sometimes I say things that have offended people because I have a PhD from the University of Chicago. The University of Chicago is the highest place in the world with sociology. Chicago School is the top of it. I came from a very, very brutal intellectual foundation. I'm a soldier in the United States Army that does a lot of classified work. And that's a lot of the work I do. Sometimes I have difficulty gauging how offensive I may be with what I said, because I think I have a very thick skin. Like if you tell me something, I don't think it's so personally. and I, in my mind, I don't intend to do you wrong because I love you, I care for you, I may be a passionate. So in my mind, I'm thinking there's no way I can really offend you by what I'm saying. But after when I hear it, I say, okay, I see how they might get offended. So from my academic pedigree and other things, a lot of us we have to do a lot of work. And I'm still working on that, to figure out how can I strike a good balance between telling the truth, being factual with what I have. Maybe, maybe I have a little edge and maybe I say something, but how do I do that without offending people?
I sense a need for what you call self-evaluation.
Yes, self-regulation. Maybe we talk self-regulation. So all of what I say applies to me. And I am with sin as well. I'm not without sin. So I, as a social person, I have to be aware that I too need to be humble and I need to learn.
Yeah.
And as bad as I may make a mistake, I'm trying my best. Like, like somebody you do your best, but you still get a duck. You practice, you run, everything you're batting, but you still get a duck. You know what I mean? So it is important. And I think with the question you're asking, all of us, when we're in leadership positions, we have to be aware of where we are headed, what we're leading. And a lot of times, if you're leading, the ideas you have, sometimes in fact, especially with PhDs, our ideas really are better than other ideas because that's how you get it. It doesn't mean that other ideas are nothing, but from the perspective that you come, you can have a victory. It doesn't mean that the only victory is yours, but you're trained to be able to do better than the ideas that were there before. And when I train PhDs, they better be better than me. As far as I'm concerned, because I did my PhD 20 how many something years ago. I don't need to come and humble to me. I need you to come good. Yeah. And I need you to advance knowledge. You understand? So a lot of self-regulation is needed in the process. And the point I want to make is that all of us are in the learning process. So all of what I'm saying, that comes to me. The same way as about fragile ego, I cannot have a fragile ego. If I say something and I offend somebody, I have to humble, I have to apologize, and I have to try my best not to do it like it. Somebody said, not talk to me again, not to work with me. And I just have to accept the fact that not all relationships are going to be amicable the same way. And I have to just do better to try when I speak, not to rub salt in someone's wound. And if I do that, to just try to do better next time with good intentions.
So just to clarify to our avid listeners, there is still a difference though in communicating in a humble fashion. That's what I'm getting from you, and communicating to kiss up. Right. To someone with a fragile ego.
Yes.
And at no point in time should persons mix up the two.
That's a good way of saying it, because I have come to terms with some realities that in order for me to work with certain people, like I have some of the habits I have that make me who I am, and I do not want to give up and let go. I'm going to have to settle that those people and me will never have an amicable relationship.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to play in my head, you're not going to make me moo-moo, you'll make me dotish. And you're not, what I'm saying? And I didn't want to be that a little bit. I don't want to be a little bit like that. I don't understand. So for me, I have to accept that if everybody come to your home, you want to embarrass me and say bad jokes on me, I'm not going to your home because I don't like that. I don't want to put myself in that position. But at the same time, because that I don't have to scandalize your name, I don't have to do anything wrong to you. I just have to realize there's certain ways I'm not going to change. There's certain changes I can make and certain changes I cannot make.
But let me ask you, Doc, from a formal perspective,
right.
Persons with that fragile ego, do you recommend therapy?
Well, I don't know, because somebody with a fragile ego, I could be the problem. Let's say you and I are talking and I'm offending you. It doesn't mean you have a problem. I could be the one that is not well enough aware of how I'm offensive.
No, I understand that. But in the context of okay, this person really has a fragile ego. Let's talk solutions.
Yes, that's true. Because a lot of times when you say that and you had that experience with one person, there can probably 10 or 15 or 5 other people or whatever that can say, yes, I understand. I have that same experience with that person. And in that case, yes, it is the person. It is time for a person to see a therapist and to talk about, like, one of the common approaches we use in therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is the cognitive means about the way we think, behavioral is the way we behave. So it's about what is the connection between the way we think and how we behave. And some people, they believe that when they're on top, there's always on top. They're always on top. Their word should always be the case. And that goes to a lot of us. And sometimes they may, like you have, Richard, do you have friends that always want to make bad jokes, but they cannot take one joke? Like, they always want to say a joke.
I had to drop them.
Okay, but you're aware of people like
but
that.
That is exactly why.
Yes.
I had to drop them.
So that is part of. So yeah, any way we think we fall short, or you think someone in your life falls short, therapy is a good way to begin for people to recondition their thinking so that the actions can align better with a more amicable society.
Let's make a 180.
Okay. Yes,
you should know me. You should know me already.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Go ahead.
What role does culture, faith, and education play? You touched on it a little bit, but what role do these 3 factors play in maintaining social cohesion, and how can they be better leveraged in Dominica's context?
Culture, faith, and education.
Culture, faith. And
so now let's go back again. Sociologists, we go back to definition. So culture is about the way we act, the way we think, the way we respond, the way we act, right? Yeah. And the ways that we do that in ways that require less thinking. Like, so, when we dance, we're not thinking about dancing, you can talk. You know what I mean? So so culture, right? Education, what was the other you said?
Faith and
culture, faith. Now, faith is the belief in the things that are unseen, right? Now, that's a definition of faith. We can talk about religiosity, we can talk about spirituality, but faith is the ability to believe things that you have not seen yet. And the other is education, right?
Yeah.
Right. So culture is a way of getting people to do things in automatic ways that they don't have to think much about it. So you teach you how to say, how many times you say a timetable, right? Yes, that's the culture, right? So what your timetables, your multiplication, the drilling, that's your culture, because you're going to use that for the rest of your life. You understand? Faith is the fact that your parents say, "Don't worry about this. You go to school, you will get a good job. Richie, behave yourself, you'll get a good partner." If you go to church and you do those various things, or even if you don't go to church, if you are a good person and you try to invest in yourself, when you graduate from high school, and then you'll be able to have a nice job. But you have a nice shit there, you'll be looking like you have a nice job. You told me it's after we'll take a selfie. Yeah. So you have the faith that you're going to have a new job, get a good job. You have faith that if you invite somebody to a radio station, they're going to show up because you're a decent person. But that is believing in things that have not yet been seen. A lot of us, we will not see things before we get them. So it means if you don't have faith, if you cannot set a goal and believe that goal can be met, faith is very important, the belief in the things unseen. And education is very important, you understand? Because you cannot teach what you have never learned, nor can you give what you never had. And if your only tool is a hammer, everything will look like a nail. So you have to go through your life learning to use multiple tools, because a hammer is the only tool you're using. Everything will look like a nail. If you think somebody is a voler, you always call them a voler, and you look like they think that's what it is. If your tool as a woman, a man, is the way you assess people, is just to see them as skeptical and be cynical about them, and to have cynicism, that is your tool, everything will look cynical. So education teaches you, because education really, I say that knowledge is the discovery of ignorance. So for me, the more educated I get, is the humbler I should be. Because as I become more educated, I realize how much I don't know. I come so many ideas I do not know. So I have to really humble myself. So the education is important because it gives us a journey to have tools that we can use in reference to culture and in reference to faith. That you can use the tools that you have to be able to believe in the things that you have not seen and deliver on them. And the culture is going to be like the sauce, the gravy. It's going to be that juice that's going to allow you to overcome hardship, to set goals for yourselves. When you are down, to be able to raise yourself up and to be able to have a way that you can relax. I love playing the accordion. I love around the mountains. You know, fair. I love eating some good food. Tonight we go on a galta, no kai for feed, if ever no kai for bobraf. You know what I mean? So those three things together are important. And a united society brings those values together, defines culture, defines faith, and defines education, and use education to help people learn and to contribute to a better society.
Doc, you've been fantastic. We do have to make way for our next guest, but
So,
I just want to take two calls. Is that fine?
sure,
We
that's
can
sure, that's okay.
call her you live.
Hello, Richie, to the learned doctor in the house.
Yes, Dr. Peter St. John.
Good day, sir.
Dr. Peter, can you tell us, can you explain to us, we have a serious problem in our society. I don't know if it can be fixed, how it's going to be fixed, and whether it really can be fixed at all. Because we all have diverse views and opinions. We all have what we call freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. And we have different talk shows on island, on different media outlets.
Okay.
And some of us, most of us have our own opinions, and we express ourselves
All right.
only to find out that, one, you get blacklisted, you get marginalized, you get blackballed, they label you, they put a mark on you, and it's like the house slave goes and reports you to the master of the house. I don't know what is it that this thing is just not going away. We just don't respect diverse views and opinions. They attack you, they say, oh, he's suffering from dementia when he says those kinds of things. How can one be suffering from dementia if he expresses an opinion on a topic of the day? One of the major topics of the day, which is still ongoing, is the budget. And different talk shows discuss the budget and different topics. And if you don't say something that they don't like to hear, and they report you, they label you, they put you in a corner. What can we do about this, Dr. Peter Sensha? Is there something that can be done? God bless.
Yes, caller, thank you.
Thank you.
And there are a lot of things that can be done, but I'll give a short antidote of what's one experience of mine, and then hopefully I can help to answer. When I was applying to be the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at North Park University, I told the provost that I heard that people like him and the president of the university and some of the people didn't like people like me. And I needed to clarify that before I put myself in a position to be dean. I said, what do you mean people like me? I said, well, what do you know about me? They said, well, somebody that's outspoken, will talk the facts, but sometimes you put out the facts, your facts are not always perfect or interpreted perfectly and so on and so forth. And I do not want to be muffled. I want to say how it is. I want to, use my science and my independence and those types of things. And I had said certain things. I mean, the president of the university, that I brought up charges against for things I thought that were discrimination, racism, and creating a hostile work environment. And I did that. So I had the reputation of someone that was going to be calling you out because I wrote the call out charges. You understand? And I said to the provost, when the provost came in, I said, well, I want you to know, because he said, no, I know who you are. They told me who you are. So I said, well, how are you going to deal with someone like me? And he said, because I said at one of the events when I got an award for top cultural, for diversity award, and I didn't want to take the award because I find they didn't do enough about diversity. I thought it was hypocrisy. But then I ended up taking it, I wanted to diss them. And I told the people, do not let the bastards chase you away. I'm not cursing, bastards is different. So I said, do not leave before your time. And I told the students and I told the faculty members who work here, do not let the bastards chase you away. I said that in front of the provost. And the provost told me afterwards that I am not concerned about putting up a defense wall about what you said and how you said it. I want to understand what I can learn about the passion you put into what you said. And the provost had me sit with him, gave me a safe space, and had me lead an effort that actually some other noisemaker and I actually leaded an effort that the university is on the cutting edge of that innovation. Because he said that what he saw with the two loudmouths, that woman and myself, is that people have something to say, they have a style to say it, and the first thing that people like him want to do is shut it down. But instead, how can it work? Because people who song like have something to say, everybody has something to say. So I mean, I don't know what I intend to do with that example to that caller, not just to give him a theory, but to say about what works in situations like that. Because you are going to have people like me who just speak up their mind, and everybody's not going to be happy with what you say. But if your intention is to do good and you do not, and that is your tool, then how do you try not to offend people, but how do other people also learn that you're not doing those things to be offensive? So to me, what the solution Nicola is asking for is that we really have to do better to understand when somebody says something that seems to offend us or seems that we don't like to hear. There is we talk about intent over impact. It might make an impact on you, but what is the intent of the person? And sometimes we personalize when it makes a negative impact on us. We personalize that impact, negative that personal impact, into a negative intent. So the person that did that to you, the person that hit your vehicle, really intended to hit your vehicle. You understand? So I think we have a lot of work to do. And I think even when I do leadership training and so on, one of the very basic things I like to do is to help young leaders. I did in the military, help young leaders to be able to have thick skins and to be able to handle criticism well. Because to me, the magic source of a great society is the ability to handle criticisms. The same way like we talk about how we talk about faith. How do you handle a list of these? It's not about how you handle the wealthy people. The people who are vulnerable, how good are you to them? So the same way, when the people with the strongest voices, yeah, that's one thing. And the voices you want to hear, but the voices you do not want to hear, to me, the magic source is to be able to make people who have those voices that you do not want to hear feel inclusive, be inclusive. And actually, if I were in my leadership position, I give incentives to people who say things I don't want to hear. I do not like too many people around me that saying what I would like to hear, because I like to be cutting edge. I want to do the best thing. And if everybody around me want to be praising me, I have use for maybe about 7 of you, but I want 3 people, especially one that gives me a real hard time, because that person there has something I need to learn from. And I need to train myself to deal with dissent. And I need to train myself to deal with everybody has an opinion. So if I'm a dean, I'm everybody's dean. So even people that don't like me, I'm their dean too. So they can curse me and I'm going to curse them back, because I have to show up. You understand? Mm-hmm. So I think we have a lot of those training to do. And from the church, from the homes, from the organizations, we need to really start training our people to be able to handle opinions that are not central to ours in ways that are respectful, because oftentimes that's a magic source for a competitive advantage.
Doc, I can tell you, we may have to explore that as a separate discussion, because right now you can see how ridiculously sensitive society has become.
Too much, yeah.
Too sensitive to the point where it is nonsensical. You have people getting offended for the smallest things, which does not make sense, which cripples society's ability to be cohesive, to unify, to agree, to disagree, which of course promotes maturity and progress. And without that thick skin, as you put it, J.L. Joseph would say that dashing leaf, as it were, comrade.
Or what on the duck's back.
Without that, one cannot move forward. And so the illusion that you have to be, by the way, just a disclaimer, there's a difference between emotional intelligence and being rude. I'm not advising people to be rude to people.
No.
I'm saying become emotionally intelligent. You become mature to the point where you can accept criticism, to advance yourself forward, to learn from your mistakes and so on. But I'm again not advising people to be rude to people. But this thing about Dr. Saint Jean tells me something, and I run to this person. I run to the manager, and I run. I mean, come on, man. We have
Yeah.
to do better than that.
Well, we have to
what
train our young people and then organizing our own positions to live that way and help others do their best to be that, to be ways that are
Yeah,
contrary
yeah.
to that.
So it's this is a very very interesting viewpoint that you've brought up. Uh, I would like to engage you more, but we
I
have
know.
to move on to our next.
I see we have a bunch of comments here on
Yeah,
Facebook, but I guess
it's
people
blowing
see
up.
them. People see them. People see them.
Loving the conversation and
Um,
discussion. That's
yeah.
from Peltier.
Mm,
Peter Carbon is on as well.
mm,
Good afternoon to you, Peter. So
yes.
there's a lot we can
Yeah.
take, but
I
another
know we have to
time.
go. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
for
Our
sure.
next guest is here, and
Yes.
I know he's very excited from your, your contributions. I'm sure, and
Okay.
he'll have a lot to say.
All right.
But
Well,
I appreciate you coming in because I know you were about to go to another meeting, and
yes,
then yeah,
yes. I had to ask my sisters are waiting for me by Astafan. So no, I had to. So since I was my way, so I had to really enjoy. I mean, it's such a joy. My two sisters and my brother are here, and it is
good
such a
afternoon, guys.
joy. It is such a joy to be there
Yeah.
with them. I just feel the love. My cup is
I mean
overflowing.
that's what family is.
Oh my
Doc.
goodness.
That's what family
Oh my
is.
goodness, I just love it so much. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you. Well, thanks for allowing me to spend this time with you during the day,
Yes.
and thanks for calling to remind me because because yeah. So it is. But I'm glad I'm here, and thanks for having me here. And I hope
Yeah.
that my voice is used for good. And please try as much as possible to use my voice in ways that cause unity, that help with unity. And anything that can be used for division, I would appreciate if that's not done because I have enough people misconstruing what I mean when I say certain
When you
things,
say
and
certain
sometimes
things,
when
yeah.
certain clips are said in isolation, people take it too personally. It's the kind of the issue, but I'm just asking for your courtesy in that way, not to make roar out of what I say. And
Yeah.
not you do that, but I'm just going to ask that because we all need to build a better society, and I try honestly to contribute to a better society, not a divided one. Thanks in advance.
Well, we appreciate you, taking the time and really bringing a lot of context, a substance to the topic at hand, creating a unified society in our country, and it's a need.
Yeah.
So let's take that selfie. But of course, to those watching, you see us take the selfie.
A man of his
To
word.
those listening, you're going to listen to our valued sponsors. Okay, so we'll be right back after this.
Thanks, everybody.
Add some sweetness to your days with Sunday's ice cream, and you can be the next lucky winner to an all expense paid trip to Guadeloupe. Purchase one tub of any Sunday's ice cream at Fresh Market or Best Price. Write your name and number at the back of the receipt and place it in the box provided. Or WhatsApp a photo of your receipt with your name to 317-4130. That's 317-4130. This summer, make every day Sunday. Terms and conditions apply.
When you come in the jam, you should have a baby in your hand. When you come in the band, you should have a baby in your hand. What we drinking? DBB style. DBB nice. DBB style. DBB nice. DBB style. DBB nice. DBB style. DBB nice. BB Spice Rum. It's more than just a rum.
BB Spice Rum, distributed by
The government
Belfast
of
Estate.
Dominica
Drink
has
responsibly.
declared a national firearm amnesty. If you have an illegal gun, now is the time to turn it in. No charges, no questions. If you know someone with an unlicensed firearm, say something without saying your name. Crime Stoppers Dominica keeps you completely anonymous. Call 1-800-8477. That's 1-800-TIPS. Your voice stays hidden, but your action could save lives. Let's protect our island together. A message from Crime Stoppers Dominica and this station.
Carifesta is the whole region looking good.
Forward is we runway. It's in the way we walk. It's the way we talk. It's the way we move. We ready for the world. And when we step on our pose just so, it's pure style and fashion. Look away! Come for Gary Festa 15 in Barbados. Book your stay now at visitbarbados.org/Gary Festa.
Yes, lovely people. We continue the program. Good afternoon to Al Alphonse. Tyro Nicholas, good afternoon to you, brother. I'd like to introduce our next guest for this afternoon's program. Again, Talking the Block, sponsored by the good folks at ESA Trading Limited and at New India Assurance. All right, connected with us at this time is the president of the DAEC, that is the Dominica Association of Evangelical Churches, a well known pastor, highly respected Pastor Matthew Auguste. Pastor Auguste, can you hear us at this time?
Yes, Richie, I can hear you. I'm trusting that you
Fantastic.
can hear me.
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear. We're not seeing you though. But welcome to the program. We appreciate you, and sorry, we look forward to engaging you this afternoon. So you heard the doctor, Dr. Peter Saint Jean, of course, earlier on. I would assume, and of course, he had a lot to say, very profound in his statements as it relates to the topic, creating a unified society in Dominica. But let me ask you, Pastor August, from a faith based perspective, why is unity so critical to the spiritual and social well being of a nation like Dominica?
Uh, Pleasant good afternoon again, Richie, and of course, pleasant good afternoon to those of you in Dominica, those of you in the Caribbean, and by extension, the world. It's always a joy to be with you, and also always a joy to be able to share my perspective on the issues that are relevant to the times in which we're living.
Yeah.
Rishi, I want to thank you for that opportunity to be here. I really wanted to do that. And I listened to probably not everything that was said by Dr. St. Jean, but I listened to as much as I could when I got in to just to hear what he was saying. And I share, of course, and I'm coming from a little different perspective since I'm dealing with looking at the faith-based here this afternoon.
Yes.
But definitely share a lot to what he was saying. And one of the things I want to say, as your question in relation to the critical aspect of unity in our society, and I want this and probably be very dogmatic in the beginning to say that to everybody, unity is not a peripheral issue. In other words, it's not just something hiding in the branches out there, something that we're looking to find. It is a part of national survival, and it is at the heart of spiritual revival itself.
Mm.
You know, Dominica is as small as it is, stands at a pivotal moment in her history, where to me, and I'm certainly sure to most faith-based individuals, will remind us that the choices of leaders, the choices of churches, the choices of community, they will determine the legacy passed on to the next generation. And the church must lead courageously in this. Not only preaching, of course, not only talks in relation to unity, but by practicing it through inclusive ministry or advocacy, and of course, by ensuring that there is a bridge building across all sectors of our society. And I'm certainly sure that in the past, that I've heard much questions in relation to the church, why the church hasn't taken certain stand, why the church hasn't done so and so. And probably when you do take a stand or you have spoken about specific issues, people say, well, boy, the church seemed to be becoming political. And I want to address some of these issues this afternoon.
I passed. You hit the nail right on the head. I have gotten a lot of concerns like that, and I've had to explain to people that even biblically, God supports this. The teachings of God support the church to be very much involved in the leadership of the nation, praying for the leaders, as well as through the Spirit of God, guiding the leaders to make the policies that, of course, exalt God and bless the nation, because the decisions and the policies made at that level truly affect the people of the nation. So to try and separate the church completely from normal politics, as it were, not partisan politics, there's a difference, I believe,
Yes.
is insane. But let me ask you my follow up question in relation to that. How can the church play a greater role then in bridging social, political, and generational divides, which we could say currently exist in our communities?
You know, Rishi, even before I attempt to answer this question, I want to bring a level of clarity to probably what I just said, okay, and move to that question.
Yeah,
Okay, again, unity is not merely a social ideal, okay? Unity is a biblical imperative and, of course, a national necessity, especially in today's increasingly fragmented world, okay? A world where visions, and I want to be careful but very, very honest about what I say here, okay, in a world where there's so much division, um often along the lines of politics and race and religion, and the list goes on. The need for unity is more pressing than ever before, and especially
mm,
for nations like Dominica, that is supposedly rich in culture and heritage, and having a spiritual legacy. The point of unity is foundational for spiritual renewal and, of course, for societal progress. Now, I
mm,
know when I say that, people probably might be thinking, well, the church, either we don't say anything, we do, we sometimes sound what people think to be politics. But let me draw a line here before I answer Richie's important question. Let me say to those of you listening, politics really is every activity that involves decision, especially in the context of governance.
correct.
So if you remove the church from the activities in relation to the decision that must be made in governance, then you're literally putting the church in a position of becoming irrelevant.
Mm,
And that is why, and so here's the important aspect here, that we must understand that there's a huge difference between just what Richie said to partisanship and politics, because we were always called to be able to make decision in a context of governance.
mm,
If you think of the Bible, and there are lots of instances in the Bible where the Bible talks about unity as being important in relation to not just the church, but in relation to national necessity, where the scripture says, especially in Psalms, for example, 133, where the Bible says, how good and unpleasant for people to dwell together in unity. So this is not just a poetry. This is a strategy from God, that he knows that there is something that happens when we literally allow the concept of unity to take place in our lives. So when a nation is unified or is in unity, it creates room for peace and progress, and of course the presence of God. And so imagine, even Jesus warned against a divided nation. He says, kingdom that is divided cannot stand. And so
Mhm.
spiritually speaking, when we're divided, we're going to block the flow of blessing. So again, if we take this into proper perspective, unity is going to prevent the difficult, the struggles that we find so many times are present in the middle of our growth and our success. Now, no, to to get to the aspect of understanding how do we bridge that gap is that I think we need to think about, because that's a profound question. Because the role of the church, okay, is interesting here as it relates to looking at how we can bridge the gap. Let
Yeah.
me break this down. For example, okay, the church must understand, as in that context of unity, that there is something called social divides. Now, socially, we need to reaffirm everyone's dignity. In other words, there's a concept that that there are some people who are supposed to be on the receiving end, and there are others who are not supposed to be on the receiving end. Now, our outreach must be inclusive of everybody, so that we
Mm.
position ourselves, Richie, to be able to welcoming everybody, whether it is the street vendor, whether it is a CEO, regardless of status, race, or background. Acts of service and community outreach and justice advocacy, must position the church to be able to see everybody and to touch even the marginalized groups with
Mm.
that kind of compassion that God to us. That's
Mm.
socially. But there's also the political divide. We're not here to take sides. And I want to say this so people hear this. The church was never been placed in any country or in any land or the earth to take sides. Okay? We were always called not to become or to have an allegiance, but we were always called to represent truth. Today, we are living in a society where people have become aligned to an allegiance rather than they aligned to truth. It's
Say
really
that,
about
say,
who's
say that again, Pa. Say that again.
we I don't know if I can say it again the same way, but I'm telling you, we are literally aligned. We position ourselves where we have become so allegiance prone that we
Mm.
do not see ourselves as representing the truth.
Mm.
So we represent an allegiance, not truth. you
Mm.
know but we're called there to offer space, for dialogue and reconciliation. Leaders must avoid that kind of partisan entanglement, and so we have to remain, if you will, prophetically engaged every time. And I say this by thinking of, I'm certainly sure, Richie, you probably might have read of what happened with the former Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
after apartheid. You remember what he did? He did a few things, and some of the things that he did was he gave the victims a voice. After he allowed people to come and spoke about issues that they probably would not have wanted to, based on how they were dealt with in governance or by governance. He facilitated what he called a conditional amnesty. He modeled the kind of a moral leadership where he publicly would speak to individuals and express to them the compassion, and also allowed a kind of accountability to those who felt that they were victimed. And then he promoted national healing. If you remember the word that was used constantly, the word Ubuntu. I don't know if you remember that. In South Africa, Ubuntu at the time, which literally meant and carried the idea that, I am because we are. It was a concept in Africa that says, I am because we are. In other words, I am not just supposed to represent a sort of a people who look like me. I'm supposed to represent the entire nation.
And so, in what ways then, let me just taking on from that, in what ways has this unity now affected the moral and cultural fabric of the society? And how can this be reversed through intentional ministry?
Well, you know, when I think about what's happening in our country, Richie, beyond doubt that there is a moral fragmentation.
Mm.
There's a moral fragmentation, and I say this especially when I think about the divide in this unity, the how our moral compass has been eroded, and so because of this moral fragmentation, the aspect of unity is questionable. Very little shared values, behaviors that once, we once probably frowned at, we hated, we didn't want to be named among us, is becoming normalized. And issues like, for example, gender and violence, crime, and in recent times, more and more corruption questions can increase, and they are increasing when there is no unified moral stance, moral fragmentation.
Mm.
A second thing I notice is the aspect of the dissonance in relation to culture. Okay, disunity is leading to a loss of the cultural pride. When communities are not united, we have things that we used to embrace, like traditional practices and customs. They are devalued, and in some cases even lost. Some things that we
Mm.
are you
Mm.
there?
Mhm. Mhm.
you know but
Mhm.
but 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 and so those are things that we see before us on a consistent basis. And so where's our pride? The idea of our attitudes, our language. This unities fragments a nation's moral and cultural identity. And so places like Dominica, which is again small, instances of political biases and nepotism, rivalry, and a disconnection, especially with the tradition, have weakened our societal bonds. And so people feel divided, and there's very, very little mutual trust. And so we have distrust seem to be growing, and of course, the collective morality that we once held are simply eroding, honestly.
Pastor August, it really is like that. I've had to encourage people. I'm probably not the most spiritual person, or in the eyes of people, not the most holy. But I know where my heart is. I know where my soul is, and I know I profess teachings of Jesus Christ. But I've had to encourage people not to give up as far as it relates to socializing with other people, because to them, some persons feel very discouraged, and there are different factors that could lead to that, um, as you've pointed out. But I've had to encourage people, that good still exists, and we can go into, as long as the Holy Spirit is present on earth, biblically, good will exist as long as the Holy Spirit remains here. Good things happen because of God. So giving up is still not an option, even at this dispensation. Um, but you're so right that there is a sort of a defragmentation going on as far as that is concerned. But what biblical principles or teachings do you believe are most relevant today in encouraging national unity and mutual respect among citizens? But even before that, I want to stay on this unity a bit. It you mentioned that this is happening, um, but in terms of ministry, can you give certain examples of certain ministries that could be lifted up from the church's perspective to sort of tackle that on a community level?
Okay, I will delete for biblical practice. You said in the question you're asking just a while.
Yeah.
This is a good question that you're asking. Very good question. I want to probably sound an alarm again with you, and to say, in the midst of all the devaluing and in the midst of all the areas where we seem to have been losing, there is still hope.
Yeah.
There's still hope through intentional ministry.
It has to be
Honestly,
intentional.
it has to be intentional. One of the struggles that I've had, one of the struggles as well, I share a few of those, is I've observed, Richie. I've observed. I do not know if, and somebody could probably correct me on this, if it was not something of the past, but I've observed junior officers passing their inspectors without offering the customary recognition of respect. Something that I noticed in the past, I've seen in the past, would
Mhm.
have been strictly prohibited by both the police or the military. There's no way that you would just pass your seniors like you didn't even notice them. Now, that this is something that, that questions what we're doing. How do we, in the midst of all of that, I'm talking about just as a church, when we compare this with just on a social level, or looking at those things, and of course, we have to be talking about the concept here of national days of prayer, national days of repentance.
Mhm.
We have to be thinking of circumstances such as community reconciliation projects, and those can take different forms.
Yeah.
Youth empowerment programs that
Programs.
that
Yeah.
that focus on values, and what about unity campaigns in schools and churches? It must not just be something that promotes what we would want others to recognize, what seem to bring a certain level of credence to what we want to see. It should be what is affecting us on a national level. And so what I've
Level.
noticed is,
Mhm.
for a lot of people, unity seem to be, or it seemed to be, whether you are supporting what I am doing instead of whether we are doing what must be done for a common good.
Mm. Mm.
So if what I am doing, you are not supportive, then I am labeled, Pastor Ogis is labeled as antagonistic and very political or very religious if he does support what I am doing. In other words, unity is defined to them as wanting to support what they're doing rather than doing something for the common good.
Mm.
And so for me, in the aspect of the national days, the community reconciliation, empowerment, unity campaigns, and all of these things, it's not just about preaching unity. It must be something that we decide to live. It must be a practice.
How can churches work together? We're talking crossing denominations to model unity and serve sort of as a collective force for healing, reconciliation, keyword there, reconciliation, and social change.
You're asking the question, how can churches grow? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, this is not difficult for us in our understanding, especially as a church. Our mandate is really clear from the Bible. It's a biblical principle to adhere to the whole concept of unity. This is not something that is far from the church. In fact, it is central to the tenets of the faith. And when we understand that it is central, it's going to profoundly and relevantly affect the way that we are going to cultivate everything that we do. And one of the things that we must see is that people are not and should not be seen away from that which God created. God reminded us in his word that every person is created in his image. And so, what can we do as a church? First, we must understand that there is a mandate that God has given to the church, and we must align ourselves to the mandate. There are lots of mandates out there, but our first mandate is to ensure that we are embraced by the mandate of God, to realize that we are created in the image of God. The other aspect here, so that's one. So apart from just the programs and the established things that we can do out there, and there are lots of different ideas, more than just programs. I don't want to head into a program today. I want to focus on just the aspect of understanding that there are key principles. And another principle is to adhere not just to how God created us to be, so that we are, at the end of it all, we are not just promoting unequal aspects around the board, but we are promoting dignity and equality around and across class and race, and even sometimes denominational barriers.
Yep.
Okay. So those are key in our understanding that we have one mandate, and that is, of course, to establish the kingdom on earth. It is not just our own personal agendas. Then the other aspect is what I see in Mark chapter 12, when Jesus spoke about the neighbor aspect, and he says you must love your neighbor. So again, churches are not just neighbors, but churches are also in this thing intrinsically involved in what God desires for us to accomplish. So that when you think about it, Jesus summarized the entire law with really 2 commandments: love God and love your neighbor. And we see that reiterated again in the book of James. James say, if you fulfill, he says the royal law, he says, then you will do well. So mutual respect begins when we treat others not as adversaries, but as neighbors, as fellow citizens of the kingdom. Now, I can stretch this even to the way that we treat each other in our own nation, apart from just our churches. The loving your neighbor principle. I've seen this a lot of the times. People tend to believe that they are promoting the love your neighbor principle again when it has to do with what they are doing. But we treat others, as adversaries, as enemies. By the way that we respond, by the things that we do, and by the very concept of ensuring that others do not achieve or receive the benefits that other people on the other side are receiving. So we're treating them as enemies or adversaries. So the loving your neighbor concept is another aspect that is very, very important. And that's one of the ways that churches can also bridge the gap, because based on how we see each other. Then there's the idea of the how do we do this? The concept of reconciliation. In the past, and I'm certainly sure everywhere, there are always differences. There are always lines drawn in relation to beliefs and doctrines. But the ministry of reconciliation, tells us that God gave us the ministry to ensure that people would see that there would be no hindering, or there would be no lingering to his achieving success and victory on this earth. And so that goes beyond evangelism. It goes even beyond just our own personal church and denomination. The whole idea and concept of ministry of reconciliation enters into the concept of making peace with our families, with our communities, with our nation. And so this is another way that we can do it. And there are lots of other ideas and things that I'm certainly sure that we can do to bring about and to, of course, embrace the concept of the ministry of reconciliation. And then there's the other idea, Richie, that I probably spoken about many, many times, the concept of the unity of the body. Because we have a definition of the way that we have seen our unity of the body in something that I don't believe that God literally desires for us, And the concept of the unity of the body is not just to know that we are going to a function, It is not just to know that there is an activity and so I come to support. The concept of the unity of the body is a way of modeling what I call a functional diversity. In other words, you might be very different, and I expect you to be different. Does not mean that we cannot function.
Correct.
Yes, we can function and still be different. I don't understand why. Why do we think that we want to be together, but we don't want to embrace the concept of diversity? And I see this not just in sometimes in churches, or sometimes in the world. As we see this in leadership,
Yeah.
in a political order, we see, and all the
Yeah.
time. And I've been calling for the nation. I believe, and I'm totally in sync, and I've been calling for the nation. I would love to see the political order of our day come together and on national radio and in national symposium to debate things that are of critical importance, because we call our schools in relation to debates. We call our youth for debates. And after our schools, I mean, we got Convent High School against Northeast Comprehensive High School debating. And at the end of it all, Northeast goes to the Convent debaters, and they hug each other, and they kiss each other, and they shake hands, and they sat together and have tea or juices. So why can't, on a national level, we discuss issues of critical importance? That's why I believe we have to model a functional diversity in relation to the unity that we're for in our nation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there is of course the other aspect that I think that is critical to, as to what we can do, what principles that we find in the word of God that helps us, and what we can do to bring our churches together, and the aspect, what I call justice and mercy. And boy, Richie, we can talk on that for the whole afternoon.
Yeah.
The Bible says, I mean, you think what about the Bible says, what does the Lord require of you to do? And the answer is to act justly, to love mercy,
Correct.
and to walk humbly with your God.
Yep.
So can I say this afternoon? Or if I say this, people say, "Oh, this is speaking all kinds of language." But I'll say this because it's important. So I want to say, and I want to say this afternoon, that
Yeah.
based on the scripture in Micah chapter 6 and verse 6, and I'm quoting the Bible, what does the Lord require? To act justly, to again love mercy, and to walk humbly. I want to say that unity is incomplete without justice. That it does not matter how much we talk unity. It does not matter whether we have defined or we have brought about programs. We do things that we can even term our independence rally theme to be on unity. If unity does not embrace justice, it is incomplete. So until the idea that justice begins to be that realm that balances what we're doing, then of course we do not have unity. It's going to be imbalanced.
On that note, categorically, Pastor, do you believe the current state of the nation reflects a spiritual disconnect in Dominica? And if so, how does unity in Christ address issues like division, like apathy, like crime? You know
Wow.
me. You know me. I'm
I'm
going to ask
telling you.
those questions.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
happy for the questions you're asking, because I think in one sense, yeah, somebody need to be able to be open enough to be able to speak in relation to those.
Yeah.
Unity, ladies and gentlemen, is not a pipe dream. Unity is a choice. How do we address those things? I want to say to us again, it begins with our homes.
Mm,
It begins with our churches.
mm,
It begins with our hearts.
mm,
It begins with our leaders, because if our leaders embrace apathy, and if they embrace nepotism, and if they embrace discord, and if they embrace an allegiance-based society, they have allowed a disunity to equal the very difficulties that we are facing in this hour.
mm,
But if we choose on the other side of forgiveness, for example, forgiveness over offense, if we choose service over selfishness, or if we even decide to choose faith over fear, then we can build a society that honors God and uplifts every citizen.
mm.
This, I believe, is the key to understanding the whole concept of unity. Because you see, what brings this unity it's if you think about it, is our choice, a choice to turn from a direction that we were called to take. And so if we embrace the other road, we are at this cross section and we embrace the other road, then we understand what's going to happen. And I say to people all the time, it is not about mistakes done in the past. Mistakes done in the past, are not supposed to carry the weight of our future. Mistakes done in the past are dealt with, and of course it's like having a landslide in the middle of the highway heading to Roseau. Now, that's not going to cause us to allow ourselves to remain in our community forever. But when there's a landslide, what we do is we get the excavators and we get all these different tools that are important to clearing the road, and we clear them, and so we continue our path to where we were going. And so what we have done is we believe, and that's where I believe a lot of people are so frustrated, a lot of people are disgruntled and angry because they do not see the end of the tunnel, because it seemed like we're blocked. And so I speak loudly today to say that where there's offense, we must learn to bring back forgiveness. And where there is selfishness, we must learn to bring back service. And where there is fear, we must begin to act in faith again, so that we can build a society that honors God.
Pastor August, very profound, very profound. Your contribution has been excellent this afternoon. My follow up question: what message then would you share with national leaders or leaders, especially during times of crisis or tension, about the value of servant leadership? You mentioned service over selfishness, the value of humility and unity.
We must be able, Richie, and for those of you listening to me, leaders across our communities or land, wherever you are this time, we must understand that unity is not just a concept, unity is a weapon. It is the heart of national survival. It is the heart of the church in relation to revival. And God has blessed Dominica with resilience. At least we've been hearing that word for a while. But now, if it is true that we're blessed with resilience, now we need to move from resilience to reconciliation. We need to move from just the concept and idea of a legacy to a place of continuity. It must not be that what we do should die when we die. We hear the talk that lots of people are desiring the legacy. Well, if what is legacy if legacy dies with you? So if it is true that we are blessed with resilience, and we are reminded in Psalms 123, and I believe that's the message for us today, that at the end of every decision that we're making, that we must lead courageously, not only in relation to preaching unity, but a practice that is inclusive of everything that we do, which is in our advocacy and our bridge building. We must be reminded, like Psalms 133 says, it is there the Lord commands the blessing and life forevermore. If we walk in this unity, there is no command of blessings for our land.
So, August, I just want to thank you this afternoon for taking the time and really breaking this down. So profound, so clear. At this time, I'd like to take a few calls, if that's okay. Costa, caller, sorry, you're live.
Yes, boy, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that talking there.
Welcome.
But I tried to call when Mr. What is him again? The
Dr. Peter Sejan, yeah.
Yeah, And I was going to ask him a question, then I hear him was saying, he was talking about it, about faith. Yes, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And if you come to him, you must believe that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And sometimes there are people that are going to seek things by faith, but they end up, though even receiving it, they died. Especially those who died in Christ on Sunday, they died and they did not achieve it. But still, they pursue. Now, with Pastor, I just love Pastor Ugis. I do not know him, but I'll know him someday. And I like to hear the way he preaches. He does not have no puff, no little thing about him. He just casual. And I believe that. And when he quoted Micah, he quoted the word, but it came from Micah 6, justice, love, mercy, and I'm humble before you. And to me, I'm not too sure, Dominica is a very funny place that everybody, religion is very strong in the island, very strong. And everybody believes because they are religious, they have it. But as the Bible tells you, you have to come to Jesus Christ on Sunday to know him as a personal Savior. So we can work together. It made me remember the story of Nehemiah, the amount of adversary and problem he go through. But what did he say? He said when they come to build the wall of Jerusalem, he said that the people were willing to work. They were of one mindset and they worked. Yet there were other people, the other some maladies people this came after him, tell him, what are you building there now? But if a fox passing the break, and so much trouble, but they decided it. And they had to stand up with weapons and different things, watching their clothes. You understand? So in Dominica, it is a hard country. Not that they hard with food, but hard when people believe. And people just don't worry. They just don't worry about it, and then they're not spiritually minded to get into the nitty-gritty of Christianity. And it's going to take it will come through. I believe in God, but it's going to take a hard road. Hard road. People hear the word every day. Or they say, yes, it was good, we like it. But what are you doing with the word you hear? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Pastor, your closing remarks at this time.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I want to encourage everybody, those of you that you've listened and you have been listening. I trust that the word of unity would become something that is a critical cry, not only for individuals or they who have been asking about the question of unity, but that concept of unity would become something that is very, very near to you. It is something that would be a hot issue. And I know that when we think about unity, lots of things come up. There are so many things biblically, and time doesn't permit us to do this. But I want to encourage those of you that are on to be able to say to us, wherever you are, understand that, like Desmond Tutu, it is I becoming, and embracing the eye of everybody, so that I am just not the person that is going to be able to make the decision, and that decision is going to stand. It must become all of us inclusive, that every Dominican, on the stage of action, puts ourselves in that phase to be able to do something that is right and to be able to make things work. It is not just one person, and so all of us, we have something that is important and critical to our development. And so I encourage everybody to rise up in the midst of, rise up in faith, and rise up to be able to remind yourself that there are some things that you were called. We were all created to solve a problem. And the reason why there are problems is because, there is a solution. And chances are maybe you are the solution. And so I want to encourage somebody, whatever your circumstances are, whatever you might be facing today, to just imagine yourself being the solution to the problem that we face in this hour. And if we see ourselves as a solution, you better believe that there's something good that's about to come out of it. So blessings again. Thank you so much for having me share on the concept of unity. And I trust that we can embrace this critical issue in our land and, of course, move forward in this direction. Thank you, Richard.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Pastor Matthew Ogis. He is the current president of the Dominica Association of Evangelical Churches. Pastor Matthew Ogis, thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you.
All right, Dominica. Building unity, building a unified society. Is it possible? Based on the responses of our valued guests, Pastor Matthew Auguste and Dr. Peter Sejan, the answer to that question is yes. It all depends on how determined and committed you are to make a unified Dominica a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. My name is Richie Farrell. And on behalf of all of us here on the big station, Q95 FM, I'd like to say good afternoon.
The New India Insurance Company has reopened its doors in Portsmouth, offering the same great services you get in Roseau: motor vehicle insurance, home and business owners, fire and related perils, public liability, and so much more. Come, visit us today for insurance with a personal touch on Bay Street, Portsmouth, or call us at 445-4023. We are ready to serve you.
All you, I just meet Goldwyn in Roseau again. Same place outside Flossie's. I tried to dock in, but you had time see me. Where? Story start again. Million, lot of my power with us, huh? Salka fella, I said the same thing you doing, shopping at Flossie's. And you don't have to tell me the same thing you tell me last time because I busy. It's to hear him way. You reckon? About my pocket, boy. I won't tell you that I save money in food and drinks when I buy quantity. I save more. Oh, shucks, man. Well, when you're still telling me, I know already. Tu paga respect him, eh? When I get him up here for Palais, I will tell all my friends from London, US and Dominica to come to Flossie's, right next to the Rosa Market. Open Sunday to Saturday. Flossie's can't do it to you.
Big news, Dominica! DeWitt Center is now even closer to you with the opening of DeWitt Center Express, conveniently located on Cork Street, right next to Fresh Market. Get all your home improvement essentials fast with everything from tools and paints to home decor and more. Plus, enjoy the same great service you know and trust. Now, just a quick stop in the city. Visit us